Hi, second graders. Our math lesson for today is Chapter 11, Lesson 3, Select and Use Customary Tools. And this lesson starts on page 657. Now let's turn to the next page. It says you can select and use tools to measure length. Circle the tool you would use to measure a marker. So we have an inch ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape. And our helpful hint is measure objects shorter than a foot with an inch ruler, objects longer than a foot with a yardstick, and objects longer than 3 feet with a measuring tape. So for a marker, what we would use to measure it is an inch ruler. So go ahead and circle that. For the rest of our guided practice, we're going to be given an object, and then we need to figure out what tool we're going to use to measure the object. It can either be an inch ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape, and then we're going to give the measurement for that object. So for number 1, let's zoom in a little bit. For number 1, we have a whiteboard eraser. So for a whiteboard eraser, the tool that we would use is a ruler. So go ahead and write in ruler. Let's make it a little bit thicker. A ruler. And this would be about 6 inches. Remember to put the inches so we know what measurement you're using. Okay, for number 2, we have a hallway at school, but since I couldn't go into school, I measured a hallway in my house. And what I used was a measuring tape because a ruler would be too small and even a yardstick would be too small. So I used a measuring tape. And when I measured my hallway, it was about 42 inches. Now for number 3, we need to measure from the bottom of our hand to the top of our hand. So a tool we can use for this is a ruler. And when I measured my hand, it was about 7 inches. But this can be different for each person that's measuring their hand because we all have different hand sizes. Once you're done with those, let's move on to page 659. We're going to do the same thing that we did for our guided practice. So our object for number 4 is a tissue box. And we would use a ruler to measure a tissue box because it's not very big, so we don't need to use a yardstick or a measuring tape. So we would use a ruler, and when I measured my tissue box, it was about 8 inches. Now for number 5, they wanted us to measure lockers, but I can't go into school to measure any lockers or cabinets like we have at school, so I measured a closet in my house. To measure my closet, I used a measuring tape because a ruler would be way too small. And the measuring tape measured about 53 inches. Here I have my measuring tape, and I'm about to measure my closet. So I'm starting at the very end of my closet. I'm going to bring my measuring tape all the way down, and you can see right here that it's about 53 inches. For number 6, I measured a glue stick, and I didn't have any of the regular sized glue sticks, so I had to measure a bigger one. And for this, I used a ruler. And my glue stick was about 4 inches. Now I'm going to be measuring my glue stick. I have my ruler here. And I'm going to place my glue stick all the way at the beginning of my ruler. And it is about 4 inches. For number 7, they wanted us to measure a swing set, and if we were at school, we could go out to the playground to measure our swing set, but I don't have a swing set at home. But something I would use to measure a swing set if I could I don't think that I would use a ruler because that would be way too small. I think even a yardstick would be too small because we all know how long swing sets are. So I would use a measuring tape. And then we're just going to skip the measurement for this one since we don't have a swing set to measure. Now for number 8, we need to measure a desk. So I just measured a desk that I have at home, not one of the ones like we have at school, but it's still a desk. And to measure my desk, I used a yardstick because a ruler was too small. And the height of my desk was about 29 inches. So here I have my yardstick. I'm going to measure my desk. So make sure that your yardstick is all the way at the bottom on the floor, and then just go all the way up to the top of your desk. And mine is about 29 inches. Now for number 9, I measured a floor tile. I have some of these floor tiles in my kitchen. You might have some in your house, or you might not. So I'm going to give you the measurement. What I used for my floor tile, because they're not very big, I used a ruler. And my floor tile was about 11 inches. Once you're done with those, move on to page 660. Now for our problem solving, VJ measures the length of his bike with a yardstick. He says it is 1 yardstick long. How many inches is it? So we know that a yardstick is 3 feet long. And if we know that a foot is 12 inches, sorry, let me just get my pen. A foot is 12 inches, so we need 3 feet. So 12 plus 12 plus 12, and we can add those all up. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, and 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So a yardstick, which is equal to 3 feet, is 36 inches long. Oops. Okay, number 11. Ethan measured his foot with a yardstick. What other tool would have been a better choice? So I know that a lot of our feet aren't bigger than 12 inches long. So I think something that we could use instead of a yardstick, which is the next smaller thing we can use to measure, which would be a ruler. Now let's move on to number 12. This will be the last one that we're doing for today. Aisha measured her backyard with a ruler. Curtis measured his backyard with a yardstick. What other tool would have been a better choice? So we have a ruler, and that was a little bit too small for Aisha. I think that would be too small to measure a backyard because backyards are usually pretty big in size. Curtis measured with a yardstick, which is still pretty small. So what's something we can use to measure that's bigger than both a ruler and a yardstick? Hopefully you said that you would use a measuring tape. This would have been a better choice for them to use. Okay, so that's the end of our math lesson for today. If you have any of these measuring tools around the house, maybe a ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape, you can try to measure any of the objects from our lesson today if you have those around the house too. Otherwise, we'll have some extra practicing our measurement in the upcoming lessons. So have a good rest of your day today.